All right. When I do that, I'm picturing the light from God coming all the way down through me and connecting to the core of the earth. So anyway, it's centering and grounding. I'm Neumarr Sixstar, and I'm back with another One Thought solution. Now, this came about in an interesting way. So I recently became aware of a new presence. So years ago, and I've shared this in earlier videos, I read a book called Opening to Channel by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. And I did the exercises, and I did start to channel somebody, and it took me a while to figure out who it was, but it was Jesus. And there's lots of people who channel Jesus, and I'm one of them. And so Jesus hangs out with me a lot. In fact, he seems to always be there. And typically my sense of where he is relative to me is up here, like up and on that side. And recently, within the last few months, I have become aware of another presence that seems over here on the left and like about where I am, and it's a golden ball of light. And I think it's God. And so I'm like, well, okay. You know, all of it all took me by surprise because of my conditioning. And my conditioning was such that, you know, when you are raised up in the Western religions, you're pretty much told all the time you're a sinner and you suck. And I'm just like, at this point, I won't go to church except for funerals and weddings, you know, and christenings, but I'll go for events, but I do not find spiritual sustenance there. I cannot find sustenance in an environment in which, from the get-go, I'm told I'm bad, because that's just not right. And basically being in the presence of the divine. I see the thing about that is I didn't think I was good enough to be in the presence of the divine. So I'm like, that can't be Jesus. That can't be God. I've been raised up to think I'm not good enough for them to have anything to do with me. And like you have to be extra holy and stuff for them to have anything to do with you or to have any kind of a connection with you. And at this point, I'm like, that is so silly. And they're always there. And, you know, Jesus doesn't have to... Other people in other cultures have different ascended masters they work with. But in my culture, Jesus is the ascended master that I work with and who works with me. And God, I realize, is always present. It's just a matter of being in a state in which you can be aware of it. And I've been working for a good 8 years to... It's been basically when I awakened, it has been my number one occupation, my number one pursuit has been developing my spiritual knowledge and understanding. And so after the time that the divine, God, basically, when I became aware of God's presence always with me, I had this idea that I knew was from God. And God wanted me to, my main form of creativity is music. And so this is the way I express myself as a creator, and we're all creators. God's a creator, we're of God. This is what we truly are. We're creators. And God wanted me to videotape and present the complete process of creating a song. Now, the one thing about this is I couldn't show the part where I received the song from heaven. And I know I did because that's just what it feels like. With the way that I do songwriting, I receive an inspiration. And sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and it'll be right there, like right in front of me. I'll be hearing this in my head. Other times I'll just be in a state of peace and the song will pour in. If my mind is just still, I can hear it. But then most of the time I don't get the whole song. I just get parts of it. And the human me that isn't connected to this higher realm that sends music, the human me has to sit there and use my human brain and figure out the rest of the song. That takes forever. So the song that I needed to work on, I'm working on a CD now. I needed another song for it. I had worked on one that wound up being 9 minutes, which I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. The rest of the CD is like all like 4-minute songs. And I'm like, this just is not in character with the rest of it, and it's way different. So I've got a whole nother set of music to get done after I finish this CD. It'll work with those, but not this one. So I had to come up with another song. And I reached back. I've got a big list of songs that have come to me over the years that I just haven't gotten finished. And there was one that I felt was right. It's called Hemorrhaging. And it was a song that came to me basically when I was hemorrhaging. And it was at the time that my husband had just, my now ex-husband, but at that time I had just learned that he planned to leave me. And my mind was blown. I was in a state of deep distress. And I started to hemorrhage. And my gynecologist treated me with hormones, which did not work. And she was like, you're going to have a partial hysterectomy. It's the only way. She's like, you can't go on like this. So that song came to me. I was at a friend's house. I had gone over there and just pretty much fell apart. And it was there in her house that this song came to me, her apartment in a part of Richmond called Churchill. And so it sat. The song came in probably 2011. And 2011. And, it's 2017. And I'm just now getting it finished. But I felt very strongly, I really wasn't wild about having to do things that way because it's intrusive in the songwriting process to have to turn on a video camera every time because you have to hook things up, you have to set up lights. It's, it's challenging and it impedes the process. But I felt very strongly that that's what the guidance was that I was receiving, like to the point that I'm like, well, if I don't do it that way, I'm going to feel guilty about it because I know I'm not following through with the guidance that I am receiving. That's how strongly I felt it. And so I was like, all right, I'll do it. This one song, just for this one song. I'm not doing it again because it's, a pain in the butt. But, so for this song, Hemorrhaging, I did that. And what's interesting is during the time that I was doing that, I went to the library and I checked out an audiobook. I just looked for what's on the shelf that looks interesting, and there was one called Grit. And it was about how, I guess all of culture, but especially Americans, love to see the shiny finished product. They love to see the swimmer winning the gold medal. But what they don't much focus on is the years of waking up at 4 a.m. and going to the pool by 5 a.m. and swimming for 2 hours, and, working with coaches, and the years that it takes to get there, no one is much interested in. And a lot of people don't have it in them to stick with things and have what Angela Duckworth calls grit. And I thought, well, this audiobook came to me at this time because part of what I'm doing is demonstrating what grit looks like. Because I think by the time I get done, I can't remember exactly how many hours worth of video at this point is involved in this song. But the song is a 4-minute song. And the video doesn't even include the part where I'm sitting there receiving the song. And then the times that I sat down and finished the lyrics, because I wasn't given the whole song. So I had to, it took a lot of tries to get the lyrics finalized. So there's another set of hours not shown there, but I don't know. I'm just guessing it's probably at least, 10 or 15 hours of video. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but at least 10. That it took, to sit there and figure out, all right, what, I'm thinking it probably was 5, 6, 7, it probably was about 15 hours from the time I sat down with the guitar and I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure out the accompaniment for this. I think that took about 5 tries, 3, 4, 5 tries. Then I had to add bass to it and, write out the bass. And it still doesn't have any leads on it yet, which I'm not sure it's gonna. But, so there's still more time to be, I wonder if I should, I'm not going to videotape that. Well, I'll tape it at the studio, but, so maybe I should videotape that. I'll have to think about it. So for 4 minutes, for what winds up being about a 4-minute product, if you count the original lyric writing time and all that, I'm sure I've got well over 20 hours into it. And that doesn't include all the time to drive to the studio and load the equipment and everything else. I mean, I would guess that by the time all is said and done, it's probably going to wind up being easily, a 40-hour effort just on my part to get this 4 minutes. And I thought, what is the point of this? And so I thought, okay, I think the point of why the divine wants me to do this is maybe there's somebody out there who wants to be a songwriter and they just maybe think that they're not very good at it because it takes so much effort and it doesn't come quickly to them. And I thought, so maybe that's the point of this, is for somebody out there who needs to just see somebody else just sticking with it and putting all the hours in that it takes to get it done. And I thought, so that must be the reason why I'm doing this. And then I have to tell you, as I took the journey of, memorializing the creation of this song, Hemorrhaging, I realized that I think there's a much deeper and much more critical lesson that comes with the effort. And it's the whole videotaping angle. Having to videotape it and all the little steps of it forced me to sit before a camera during the times of day when I'm songwriting, which is typically at night because I work full time and have children to raise. So it's typically at night when everything's done and it's settled before I can sit down and get anything done musically. I realized something really super critical, and it's tied into another video that I'm going to be doing today. But it's about our conditioning. I can't tell you how hard it was for me to show every minute of the process of getting the song written. And so there was that whole self-doubt of, this is completely boring. Why would anybody want to watch somebody sit down and mess around with a guitar for 5 hours trying to figure out an accompaniment? It's got to be a boring thing for other people to watch. But I realized that I had issues with my appearance. And I have simultaneously, throughout this process, realized for some time now that I have an inspiration to also do a video, which I'm going to do today, in fact, of the mirror exercise by Louise Hay. And she wrote a seminal healing book called You Can Heal Your Life. And if you're not in the New Thought movement, if you just Google New Thought teachers, you will find her right at the top of the list. I mean, she's been a great healer and gift to society. But she has a thing called a mirror exercise, and it's to help us deal with our conditioning in which we think we're not good enough. And in doing these hemorrhaging videos, I was having to look at myself at the time of day when I'm tired. You know, I mean, I work tired because that's when I have time to work on music. And so I'm tired, and you know, it's not as though I'm going to run freshen up my makeup, you know, not like for these videos. I take the time to put on some makeup and to get the lights set up right and all that. But, you know, I realized in looking at these videos, and I'm going to just admit, there's a little section of the videos that I did cut out because I didn't like the way I looked. And I'm like, what's the matter with this? You know, we as humans so accept this that I've never really seen people genuinely question this. But we are all raised up with the belief that you have to, that there's an ideal way to look. And I mean, if you do think that you meet that ideal, then most of us think you're a conceited asshole. So most of us think that we fall far short of what it is to look fabulous and to meet that standard of beauty. So most of us have at least some issue with ourselves and the way that we look, and we think we don't look good. And I realized that going through this process and having to watch myself on video, just kind of living my life as a songwriter, I realized that there are parts of my body that I just completely disapprove of. And I'm just like, that's insanity. That's insanity. How is it that I'm in this existence where I am what I am, and there's a part of myself that I reject and that I disapprove of and that I dislike and that brings me shame, so much so that I refuse to show it and to anyone else. And I'm just kind of like, this, I think, is why the divine wanted me to walk the path of the hemorrhaging lesson, so that I could have my eyes opened to this conditioning. It's so much a part of our fabric that we don't even think about it. We just wake up in the morning and have whatever critical thought about ourselves or whatever great thought about ourselves. I look pretty good today for me, but I'm going to do this, that, and the other to cover my flaws. Flaws? Really? And then I thought, well, what should it be? What should our lives be? And I'm like, what it should be is that it should be 100% acceptance. And I don't care who you are or what you look like. It should be 100% acceptance. And acceptance with love and gratitude for the way we are made, because we chose it. We chose it before we came to earth. We knew. In our life planning session, we knew. And as makers, we chose this. And I'm like, I thought, if our natural social conditioning was the conditioning of, I am beautiful just as God made me, and instead of when we look in the mirror thinking of, well, here's the standard and here's how I don't meet the standard and here's what I can do to cover up or to try to put on some kind of a mask to look like I meet this standard, if instead of that, if we were raised up from the time we were just the little in the womb, if we were raised up with, I am a beautiful creation. I am a beautiful creation. Let me see what part of creation is unique to me that God wanted me to bring into this world. So what are my special elements that are just me? So if instead of looking in the mirror for flaws, we looked for those special, unique elements of, this is what the Creator loves, I know the Creator loves everything about me, but this is what's really special. So if that's what we looked for and what we sought out in our self-image, instead of what to correct and what to be ashamed of, think about how different this world would be, and think about how much energy and thought would be released for creation and for beauty and for finding new avenues and new ways to bring love and loving thought into this world. This, to me, is why I think this is the true reason that God kept giving me this very strong feeling of record every minute of your songwriting process and post it. Share it with the world, because it caused me to look at the truth of how I see myself. And we all do this. We all do this. Every one of us does this. And it's so not the way of heaven. It is not the way of heaven. And we've all been so brave to come here to earth and to experience this, because we came for a reason. We're from heaven. We're heavenly beings. And we came to experience what it is not to know that you're a heavenly being. That's essentially why you come here, and why I think I keep reading that all these other souls have such admiration for the souls who come to the earth school, because it's tough to forget your true state of love. And man, when you're in a state of self-hate because you don't meet some standard and you don't think you look good enough, or you don't think you sound good enough, or like I've got a southern accent and I'm like, you know, people don't want to hear that. They think you're a hick. It's hard. And it's time. It is time. And I mean, I know it's time because it just happened to me. But it is time to awaken to this new way of what we think and say to ourselves, and especially to our children. But, you know, looking upon ourselves and others with complete love and acceptance. And not just acceptance, but gratitude and joy for the way this being chose to manifest in the world. So I think of how I move through the day, the way we all move through the day, the way our entertainment is, and how there are images and physical appearance of people that we just immediately judge. People in our society are so mean about people who have particular body types. And I mean, you know, we all know this. It's just so taken for granted that to even be able to see it and to say it is something people just don't even think about. It's just it's like breathing air. It's so natural to us to be critical of each other and to have a judgment of the way we look and the way other people look. And, you know, I just did a video on a one thought solution that healed me from anger and rage that I was feeling towards the woman that my husband, my ex-husband, left me for. And so I thought, well, I wonder if there's another one thought solution for this. Because if there's a one thought solutions are great, because you don't have to sit there and intellectually process to undertake the action that will change the energy. Because what you want to do to change the reality is change the energy. And when you change the energy to a higher vibration, the reality just, you don't even notice it happening, but slowly over time, the reality just becomes so much more beautiful and loving. And I thought, now, is there a one-thought solution to deal with our social conditioning around physical appearance? And something came to me. I think the angels must have sent it because something came. And I thought, one thing that everyone, I think, can totally agree on is when you look at a butterfly, butterflies are beautiful. I have never seen a butterfly that I thought was anything other than completely beautiful. And they all have their own unique beauty. And I thought, okay, whenever I look at another person, I'm going to look at them, and it's not like I do this all day long, but when I'm in the process of trying to spend some time in what I'm going to call energy healing around our social conditioning and judgment of appearance, when I'm in, a little window of time during the day when I'm going to devote conscious thought to healing that, I've got one thought that I think works. So no matter who it is, I'm going to look at them and I'm going to think, now if that person were a butterfly, what would they look like as a butterfly? Every single person that you look at, you can do this for. And because I've done it now. And it's amazing because when you do that exercise, the people who you would have a tendency to judge the hardest, given our conditioning, wind up being the most exotic and fabulous butterflies. So it's a fun thing to do. It's a really fun thing to do, and it works. So I'm going to call it the, in this sort of one thought technique. I don't know how many more of these I'll be sent, but I'm going to call it the butterfly technique. And this is a technique for healing our conditioning around physical appearance and for raising up our energetic vibration. And applied consistently over time, it will change your reality, I'm sure. Because I know when I had the other one thought solution that I used to heal from rage, it totally worked. It takes time. You don't. It's like with crystal healing. You don't. With crystals, you don't. Sleep with a crystal under your pillow, or put crystals in your bath water, or wear crystal rings, or drink moon water that you've charged up with crystals. It's not like you do that and you get like an instant, like magic, wave the wand, like poof, there it is. These are energetic, vibrational cures that you have to stick with over time. And then what you notice is you look back and it's like a year later or 18 months later and you're like, wow, I sure feel better than I used to. And the way I feel is very consistent and it feels real. So it feels like an authentic cure. But it's slow. And you don't really like ever on a day just go, hey, it's all fixed. Although actually I did, but it's just like it takes years before you can look back and say, I'm truly well. So whereas I was able to heal the hate that I felt towards the woman who is now my children's loving stepmother, and she's a great stepmother to my kids, and I'm so grateful for her loving presence in their lives, and I'm so grateful for the example we can set of friendship and true friendship between us. I believe that as I apply this butterfly technique, and it makes me feel a lot better just to even do it now. But when I see somebody that I know, I'm not even going to use the mean words that our society has for people with different body types and women whose faces look a particular way and men who, whatever. I'm not even going to use those words. I'm just going to say, I know what my conditioning is and you know what yours is, and it's all pretty much the same. You got to look like you're on a magazine cover to meet the standard. And those aren't even real. They brush those up. Nobody can meet the standard. So instead of all that, if I just think, okay, what kind of butterfly is this person? And then I picture them as a butterfly, it is so much fun and it's so healing, and it allows me to send love and a thought of that person's true beauty. And I'm not talking inner beauty. I'm like true beauty. I mean, for this earth to rise up to the destination that is intended for it, it is imperative that we look upon each other with love, gratitude, and acceptance for every aspect of ourselves. And when we do that, we will make this earth into a paradise. And I know that that is going to happen. There is no doubt in my mind that that's going to happen, because here I am, and I wasn't even awake until 2009. I'm awake now. This is my number one, after I get past, the important things like making sure my children are comfortable and happy and supported, and that my work is done at work. But my number one focus is ascension. And I know that we're going to get there. I'm positive. That's just the way it is. And I'm one of the light workers, and pleased to be on the path and pleased to serve. So that is my one thought solution. And I'm not mine, the divine sent it, the angel sent it. But that's the one thought solution for healing from negative social conditioning around physical appearance. And again, I'm calling it the butterfly technique. And see every person who crosses your path. Just try to do it once a day, just for however many minutes. Or even if you just do it once a day with one person, or just try it at all once. Just what would that person look like as a butterfly? And I think it's a way to energetically shift so that we get to that place that's real. And the real place is beauty of all and in all things. So thank you for listening and for trying that out. Till next time, I'm Neumarr Sixstar.